So, you're here because you want to get to the bottom of this whole enterprise thing with Elon Musk, right?
Yeah, it's pretty wild stuff.
It is. We're going deep on this one. We've got court documents, 2 proposed RICO cases, actually.
Wow, 2.
Yep. One against Musk and his associates, another targeting a group of, well, young engineers, plus a whole bunch of background info on everyone involved. It's a lot.
I bet. Sounds like we're diving into some, let's say, influential territory.
You could say that. These documents suggest a coordinated effort to, well, influence the U.S. government, but we're not talking about, like, your typical lobbying stuff.
Right.
This is about allegedly putting specific people in strategic government positions.
I see where this is going.
And we're not talking career politicians or seasoned bureaucrats. We're talking brilliant young engineers. Some, like, fresh out of college.
They just happen to have high-level security clearances.
The kind most people wouldn't even dream of. It makes you wonder, how did they get there?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Lay it on me.
The cases point to Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and a former government official, Amanda Scales, as the architects.
Amanda Scales. Okay, now, for those of us who don't have, like, a Rolodex of government officials in our heads, who is she? And why does it matter?
She was the chief of staff at the Office of Personnel Management, the OPM.
Ah, the OPM. So if you wanted to, strategically place people within the government,
the OPM would be a good place to start.
It would be.
And when you look at these young engineers' backgrounds, even more questions pop up.
Okay, like what?
Take Edward Korestein. He was, get this, a college freshman when he got an A-level security clearance.
Hold on, A-level clearance. What does that even mean? What kind of information would he have access to?
A-level is, it's pretty high up there.
Yeah.
Confidential, potentially top secret information, national security stuff.
Wow.
You have to pass intense background checks, prove you need to know this stuff to even be considered. So a college freshman with that level of access.
Yeah, that's not normal.
To say the least.
Wild. Okay, so we've got this young guy, Edward Korestein, with an A-level clearance. Who else is in this group of engineers?
Another one is Gautier Cole-Killian, deeply involved in something called DAOs.
DAOs.
Decentralized Autonomous Organizations. Basically, think of like a company run entirely by code. No CEO, no board of directors, just pre-programmed rules and algorithms. Uses blockchain tech for transparency and security. Now imagine someone with that expertise inside the government.
Yeah, I can see how that would be appealing to, well, someone like Elon Musk, always criticizing government bureaucracy.
Right. So we've got Musk, the tech visionary, Thiel, the billionaire investor, and they're allegedly working with this former government official to place these young, highly skilled engineers in key positions.
What are they accused of doing?
It all comes down to RICO.
RICO.
The Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, usually used to target organized crime.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
But here, the prosecution is alleging that Musk and Thiel used their influence and resources to basically form an enterprise.
Hence the name.
Right, to manipulate government operations for personal gain.
So they're accused of building their own little network within the government, but how does RICO actually apply? What do they do?
RICO lets authorities target a pattern of criminal activity.
Ah, okay.
Not just isolated incidents.
Got it.
And we're talking about a lot of alleged offenses here. Conspiracy, fraud, influence peddling, maybe even unauthorized access to government systems. They're looking into misuse of government funds, too. It's complicated.
Okay, so for our listener, let's break this down. Musk and Thiel are accused of using these young engineers as pawns to infiltrate and maybe even manipulate the government. But is there, like, actual evidence?
Oh, there's evidence.
Like what?
Mountains of it. Emails, memos, financial records. The prosecution says it proves a pattern of corrupt behavior. And then there are the witnesses, whistleblowers and experts.
Wait, whistleblowers? This is starting to sound like a spy movie.
Kinda, yeah. Can't reveal everything yet. Some of it's still under seal. But these whistleblowers claim to have seen the inner workings of the enterprise firsthand.
What are they saying?
They allege these engineers were told to bypass protocols, access sensitive info, maybe even change government data.
Wow, that's a serious accusation. And what about the experts? What are they saying?
These are people with deep knowledge of government systems, cybersecurity, financial stuff. They're analyzing the evidence, giving their professional opinions on whether what happened is criminal.
So they're helping the prosecution build a case to show this was intentional.
A deliberate and coordinated effort.
Yeah.
Not just a bunch of coincidences.
So this isn't just some billionaires throwing their weight around. This is about potentially undermining the institutions that are supposed to, serve the people. If it's true, the implications are huge.
Exactly. This case, it makes you think about the role of tech and wealth in society and what happens when power goes unchecked.
Yeah, it really does. But before we get too philosophical, let's bring it back to the case. We've got the players, the accusations, the evidence, but there's still so much more to unpack. We haven't even touched on the potential defenses or the question of treason.
A lot to cover.
So stay tuned. This deep dive is just getting started.
So, what about the defenses in this whole thing? What are Musk and Thiel and everyone else saying?
Yeah, what's their side of the story?
Well, early filings suggest their lawyers are going to argue that anything they did, anything at all, was done under government directives.
So they're saying they were working with the government, not against it.
That's the argument, yeah. Basically just following orders.
If that's true, why all the secrecy then? Why go through all this trouble to put these specific engineers in these roles?
That's the question, isn't it? It's going to be, a battle of narratives.
Sounds like it.
The defense will probably try to paint their clients as, patriotic innovators.
Yeah.
Working within the system.
To make things better.
Yeah. Strengthen national security, advance American interests, that kind of thing. They'll think these young engineers, they were recruited for their unique skills, given specific tasks, because they were the best for the job.
But wouldn't that still raise questions about, transparency, accountability? Even if it was all technically legal, shouldn't the public know how these powerful people are influencing the government?
Absolutely. And that's where the bigger picture comes in.
Yeah.
It goes way beyond just this case. It's about the balance of power in a democracy. How much influence should wealthy people, corporations have over government policy?
It's a big question.
It is. Where's the line between, innovation and manipulation?
Right.
It gets messy.
You mentioned treason earlier. Lots of people are using that word. But does it really, does it fit what we're seeing here?
Treason, that's a serious charge.
Yeah.
Legally, it's very specific. You need proof that someone betrayed their country, like waging war against it or helping its enemies. From what we know so far, the actions of everyone involved in the enterprise, yeah, they might be illegal, but they don't really meet that standard.
So not treason then. But if they're found guilty of these RICO violations, what happens? What are the consequences?
Well, RICO, it comes with some pretty hefty penalties.
Like what?
Big fines.
Yeah.
Asset forfeiture, possibly some pretty long prison sentences.
Wow.
But even beyond the legal stuff, there's the damage to their reputations and the public's trust in institutions, in the government.
That's true. Even if they aren't convicted, just the accusation of this kind of scheme could make people lose faith in the government and in the tech industry too.
Exactly. Imagine you're, just an average person. You believe that powerful people are pulling the strings in the government, manipulating things for their own benefit. How would you feel?
Not great. Pretty disillusioned, I think.
Right. Like the system is rigged.
Exactly.
That's the danger here. Losing trust in democratic institutions.
Yeah.
Because once it's gone, it's hard to get back.
Yeah. So we've talked about the potential damage this whole thing could have caused, but what if, and I know this is a big if, what if they actually had good intentions? What if they truly believed they were trying to make the government better? Strengthen national security?
Interesting question. And, the defense is probably going to use that. They'll say their clients, their visionaries.
Visionaries,
They saw a way to use technology to make the government more efficient, more effective.
Okay.
They might even say they were being patriotic, trying to protect the country from, outside threats, whatever.
But even if they had good intentions, wouldn't the methods they're accused of using still be a problem? Like operating behind the scenes, placing people strategically, accessing information without authorization? Doesn't that undermine the whole idea of transparency and accountability?
It does. That's what makes this case so tricky. It makes us think about the ethics of using technology to influence the government, even when the goals seem good.
So even if they thought they were doing the right thing, they could still be held accountable for how they did it.
Exactly. And that's why this case is so important. It reminds us that no one is above the law.
Yeah.
Not even billionaires. Not even if they have the best intentions.
It's a good reminder. So we've covered the defenses, the treason question, the big picture implications. But there's another piece of the puzzle. Those young engineers. They're at the heart of the enterprise.
They are. And they're more than just names on a court document, you know? They're people with their own stories, their own motivations, ambitions. We have to understand them, their role in all this, to really get the full picture.
You're right. We can't forget that. So let's take a look at their backgrounds, what might have led them down this path. Okay, so we've got these 5 young engineers, Edward Korstein, Gautier Cole-Killian, Gavin Kleiger, Akash Baba, and Ethan Chautran. On paper, they seem like, typical Silicon Valley success stories. Brilliant, ambitious. But were they pulled into something much bigger than themselves?
It's the big question, isn't it? It's easy to look at their resumes and see them as, well, pawns. But they're individuals, right? With their own passions, their own goals.
You're right. We can't forget that. So let's take a closer look. What motivated them?
Let's start with Edward Korstein, the youngest. Remember, college freshman when he got that OPM job. Top secret clearance.
I know, it's like mind-blowing. What could a college freshman possibly offer to get that kind of trust, that responsibility?
Well, the court documents, they say Korstein interned at Neuralink while he was still in high school.
Neuralink. That's Musk's brain-computer interface company, right? The one developing implants to help people with paralysis control computers with their minds.
That's the one. So even as a teenager, Korstein was already working on cutting-edge tech. Bright future, clearly.
So he was like a prodigy, a tech whiz kid who caught Musk's eye.
Seems that way. And maybe that's what made him so, well, attractive to the enterprise. Someone with his skills, his connections. Incredibly valuable to someone wanting to influence the government.
So they saw him as a rising star and decided to, bring him into the fold. But did he know what he was getting into?
We might never know that for sure.
Yeah.
But it's possible he was just, naive. He saw an opportunity, work on exciting projects, make a difference. Maybe he didn't really grasp the implications or the consequences.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the excitement. Working with brilliant people, cutting-edge tech, it's hard to see the big picture sometimes when you're so focused on the work.
Exactly. And that brings us to, Gautier Cole-Killian, the DAO expert.
Right, the guy working on those self-governing systems, the blockchain stuff. You said that kind of tech might appeal to someone like Musk, who, isn't a fan of government bureaucracy.
Right. Imagine government services delivered through these decentralized systems. No more red tape, no more human error, everything running smoothly, efficiently, just pre-programmed rules.
Seems like a libertarian's dream.
It kind of is.
But what about accountability? If it's all algorithms, who's responsible when things go wrong?
Good point. It's one of the big ethical questions about using DAOs in government. They could streamline things, reduce corruption, but they could also create a system that's, opaque, unresponsive to people's needs.
So Killian's DAO expertise, it could have been seen as both, a threat and an opportunity by the enterprise. They might have wanted to use DAOs to get around traditional government structures, take control.
Exactly. And it's not just Killian. The other engineers, they also had skills, connections that would be valuable to the enterprise.
Yeah.
Gavin Kleiger, for example, he spoke at KubeCon Europe about cloud computing, microservices.
Right. Yeah.
That could be useful for a lot of things. Modernizing government IT, developing new applications for data security.
And then there's Akash Baba, interned at Palantir.
Thiel's data mining and surveillance company.
Right, Palantir.
Baba's AI and blockchain background, that could be very tempting for someone wanting to exploit those technologies.
And of course, Ethan Chautran, the Harvard student, AI entrepreneur, placed second in an XAI hackathon.
Chautran, he's like the ultimate overachiever. Running a startup, Harvard, hackathons, clearly a rising star.
So all 5 of these engineers, they had skills and connections that would make them valuable to the enterprise.
Exactly. That's what makes it so interesting. It's not just about what Musk, Thiel, and Scales allegedly did. It's about how they might have used these young engineers, their talent and ambition.
It's a reminder that even brilliant people can be, manipulated, especially when they're given opportunities that seem too good to be true.
And it makes you think about those in power, their responsibility to mentor, to guide young people. Ethically, I mean.
Yeah. So where does this leave us? We've looked at these engineers, their backgrounds, their connections to Musk and Thiel, what might have drawn them to the enterprise. But the big question remains, did they know what they were getting into? Or were they just pawns in a game they didn't understand?
I don't know. That's something only they can answer. And it'll probably be debated in court for a long time.
This deep dive has been, It's been a lot. We've uncovered a lot. Relationships, power dynamics, potential criminal activity. And at the center of it all are these 5 young engineers. Their lives are forever changed by the enterprise.
It's a story about power, about ambition, about making ethical decisions in a world where technology is, changing everything.
It's a lot to think about, but I hope this deep dive helped you understand this case, its complexities, the implications of the enterprise.
And as this story unfolds, stay informed, keep asking questions, think about the ethical choices we all face in this age of tech.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, stay curious.